Ah, technology. Does it always mean,
Welcome to the world of tomorrow!
Why do you...
or can it just be a visual to show something new and different to the reader? Especially when you're dealing with a visual medium like comic books, movies, or even action figures. Yes, action figures too are a visual medium. And with Masters of the Universe, one of the interesting parts about the visual is that it's a unique combination of medieval castles, weaponry, barbarian warriors, and futuristic technology. It's very common and a very Masters of the Universe image to see a barbarian character flying past a castle on a jet ski that's soaring through the air or rolling on the ground. And it's one of the unique aspects visually that makes the Masters of the Universe toy line very different from anything else. And in the early 80s, for kids, this really opened up the world of imagination. Seeing two different images, barbarian and technology, merged together perfectly in a world that just accepts these as the norm was, for lack of a better word, very inviting. It's easy for a child to see themselves in a fantasy world when they can relate to the imagery. And most kids can relate to the idea of castles, and they can also relate to the idea of flying spaceships or, blasting futuristic tanks. So taking the two of them and squishing them together essentially just magnifies the imagination portal, allowing kids to want to be part of this world even more. It's like, pirates and ninjas or bananas and chocolate. Well, where did this idea come from and where did this visual come from? I've made a few videos talking about this in the past, that Mattel, prior to working on Masters of the Universe, did several years worth of work on Jack Kirby's Fourth World. And when you look at images from the Fourth World comic book, the New Gods comic that he worked on in the 1970s, you can absolutely see visually not just the influence of specific Masters of the Universe characters and vehicles, but the entire combination of taking technology and sort of a medieval motif and putting them together is very, very prominent in his work. Everything from the armor to the cannons to giant wheels, so many aspects of the Fourth World clearly show up in Masters of the Universe, especially the early stuff, especially the first 2 years, where all of that work was done by the same designers who had worked on the Fourth World concept for Mattel and were basically surrounded by Fourth World artwork all over the walls. And there's definitely something I can tell you from working at large toy companies is a lot of designers, marketers, packaging designers don't like to really just toss their work out. So if you spend a lot of time working on something, even if it doesn't make it to market, which is usually like 50% of the time, you'll still want to see your designs somehow incorporated into other toy lines. So that's why so many Masters of the Universe characters have their designs inspired by Jack Kirby's Fourth World designs, in terms of the armor, in terms of their vehicles. All of these aspects definitely creep in because when you've spent 2 years trying to design a Fourth World line and having that not go to market, you're going to want to see that work paid off. So it's natural it would just creep into your designs both consciously and subconsciously. So that's definitely a huge part of the influence of the visual aesthetic of Masters of the Universe. And again, it's not just the characters, and we see this a lot. I've made a whole video just about the Jack Kirby influences and how that worked. This is just kind of a brief summary of that. But what's really interesting is that beyond the monsters and the warriors and all of the locations, Jack Kirby's Fourth World was really one of the first properties that combined technology and barbarian. And yes, obviously there's, Carter of Mars that did this as well, but Jack Kirby as a comic book artist dealing with a visual medium, well, the John Carter stories, usually you only had a cover illustration. Everything else was in your head. With Jack Kirby, it was just, you know, like this image here from Fourth World. I mean, you've got, technology with dragons flying behind them. I mean, this was right in your face. And obviously, he took influence from things like John Carter and other IP that came before him. But what Kirby did with the Fourth World was really take this to the next level, specifically because he was working in a visual medium, and you could just fill his pages with all of this imagery of barbarians fighting in a futuristic world. So if you're a Mattel designer and you've just spent 2 years working on this, it's not a shock that as you begin to sketch out Masters of the Universe, you're going to use this kind of influence, and it's going to creep into your work, where barbarians carry technologically advanced weapons. And eventually this became part of the aesthetic of the entire brand, where half the characters wind up being barbarians and half of them wind up being futuristic robots or technology wielding characters. So that's the real world rationale for why technology and medieval got mashed up. But let's talk about the in-story continuity reason, because everything should be explained, right? We all want to know what Boba Fett looks like under his helmet and where Wolverine got his claws from. And yeah, some people prefer not to know, but hey, you can always stop this video. So, Hero. I've done a few videos on him. He was meant to be the 1987 continuation of the Masters of the Universe brand. He would have been trained by Eldor, his wise Obi-Wan Kenobi type wizard mentor, and he and He-Man would team up in Preternia, which was the past, which was thousands of years ago, where He-Man would time travel using the time machine inside Central Tower. Now, that storyline never happened because the brand sort of petered away in 1986-87, but when it came time for Masters of the Universe Classics, we really wanted to get to a character like Hero because since he showed up in the 1987 Mattel catalog, fans knew about him. So what's his story? Well, as Orko relates in the mini-comics, the power of the universe, which swept through the universe as a giant wave, creating life, was contained inside of the Sword of He by the overlords of Tralla in order to protect this energy power. And this sword was bestowed upon a great warrior who would be the cosmic defender. Sort of think of it kind of maybe like a Green Lantern or a Jedi Knight kind of thing, appointed to wield this all-powerful weapon. And he winds up on Eternia, which we'll get to in a moment, joining up with King Grayskull and his Masters of the Universe in helping to defeat evil on that planet. So while he winds up on this planet, it also winds up being his kind of final fate, because when he's wounded in battle, he passes the sword on to King Grayskull, and this is how it becomes part of King Grayskull's line and lineage, eventually making its way over the centuries to Adam, who becomes the true He-Man of legend. Between King Grayskull and Adam, there's many warriors who defend Eternia with the Sword of He, but that's a story for another time. So how did Hero get to Eternia? Well, the map of the Horde Empire that came with the Motu Classic subscription answers some of those questions, as well as the bios. So starting on Horde World, which is obviously the capital of the Horde Empire, because, it's Horde World. You can even see the branding that it gets right on there. Hero has a climactic showdown with Hordak and his older brother, Horde Prime, because they're evil and he's the hero of the universe with the Sword of He. In order to defeat Hero, because he's too powerful for Hordak and Horde Prime, they infect him with a techno-organic virus. Essentially, the Horde really embraced technology over magic, and they use technology as literally a virus to infect him because it's the only way they can think to stop Hero because he's just too powerful for them. He's armed with the Sword of He being the Trallan word for power, the power sword, the Sword of He. So with Hero now infected by this virus, he is thrown by Horde Prime into a portal, hoping to essentially get rid of him because they can't stop him, I guess if you will, man to man, face to face. He's just too powerful for them. So if they can infect him with a virus and then throw him through a portal and banish him, at least that's the next best thing. But they were hoping they could get the sword from him before throwing him in the portal, and unfortunately, Hero's able to take it with him. And he lands on Eternia here, in front of Eldor's cottage, cave, place of living. And so Eldor is a great wizard living on Eternia, and he is able to rescue Hero as he kind of crash lands from the portal. And as it's explained in Eldor's bio in the Motu Classics figure line, Eldor attempts to cure Hero from the techno-organic virus by soaking him in a mystic pool or a purple jacuzzi. Okay, it's not a purple jacuzzi, it's a mystic pool. But I found this image of a purple jacuzzi and I thought it was cool and representative. So while this does cure Hero, it also strikes him with a case of total...
Because I have amnesia.
And as he attempts to get his memory back, the techno-organic virus, like the slime under the city or like the way in the Matrix characters get changed, it creeps through the whole planet and mostly starts infecting the animals at first. And back in Preternia, the animals are all dinosaurs because reasons. So the dinosaurs start kind of sprouting technological parts because the virus that was soaked up by the mystic pool sort of, I guess, feeds into the whole planet, if you will, through underground streams. And all the animals start becoming partially technological, and eventually the humans as well. And this technology is eventually harnessed by the humans to design weaponry and make vehicles, make laser guns. They haven't given up their barbarian ways, but those that are good with technology and, smart inventors find ways to incorporate technology into their defensive and offensive capabilities. You'll still see them fighting hand-to-hand with swords and shields because a lot of people don't trust technology. It's kind of this foreign thing that seeped into the planet through this virus. But you'll see computers and you'll see jet sleds being used by warriors as they face off to medieval castles that have giant laser gun turrets on top. And that's basically the way that technology became part of Eternia. So while heroes could show up driving chariots made of technology or, made of metal with wheels to recruit others, sometimes they'll also show up on, giant mounted tigers because embracing their barbarian origins is very much part of the Eternian culture. Technology is the invader, if you will. So not everyone is embracing it. And while Eldor obviously made a mistake in using this magic mystic pool to cure Hero, he in a way gifted Eternia with technology and inadvertently created a planet that was a mixture of both magic, technology, and barbarian skill. I hope this video provided some insight on the real world and in-continuity reasons why Eternia is a mix of technology and barbarian fighting. Please leave comments below. Leave a subscription. It helps the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.